Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I'm just coming to the end of today's watering session, which finishes off all the pots, including holy clay pots. I've started to shuffle things around a bit. I've got plants that need the best light I can give them sort of through the winter time, but in the growing season they just need less light. They don't need that extra strong light, whereas some do. So I can start shuffling things around. The things that really do need the higher light need to get up on top shelves, and things that just don't need it so strong during the growing season, things like the Latoria dendrobiums, certainly the older odontoglossum type of the Oncidium alliance, and even some of the Oncidiums can come down a bit. So it's just a matter of shuffling around. It's those little microclimates to do with the light, where you can use a plant that likes really good light to shade one that doesn't like quite so much. So that's just a matter of putting one nearer the glass and moving one back a bit. So I'm starting to shuffle around a bit. I'm also shuffling things around because things are coming into bloom, and I like to have displays that I can see when I walk in. So when I walk in I can see this bit. Well, I don't know whether you can through the fog, but you know what I mean. So the things in bloom come to this side of the shelf. Now that might not be their perfect position for the plant itself, but it's for display purposes. The same over here. I mean, I've got this cristata, all 5 blooms have opened. One decided to turn its back on us, but I want to be able to see that. And this Cattley's open now, nice bright orange. My 2 Phalaenopsis type dendrobiums. I know that's only one bloom, but I'd still like to see it, and the other one at the back, Thai Angel. I've always got the Cymbidium somewhere, but that's got moved. That's got moved deeper into that shelf, and that's got nothing to do with light. It's the fact that the plant and the pot can shade these ones here. Now this Laelia anceps has just finished blooming. I'm giving it a partial, not a rest as such, but I'm just keeping it out of the brightest light for now. They can take good light, but out of the Cattleya types, this one's a little bit unusual because it's not as keen on high temperatures as some of the others. So the microclimate I need for that one is to be in line of a fan, so that the fan can keep it cooler but still give it the higher light. So that's that one. What else? Oh, I'm not getting the plant down again, but this manky dendrobium with all the bug damage on it, the new growths are clean, so I'm happy that the problem's gone away, but there's a bud there. And there's several others that are just starting to push. Now, for those of you who have followed me some considerable time, that dendrobium was endearingly known as the WTF dendrobium. I'm not going to elaborate. If you know what I mean, that's fine. If you don't, I'm not saying it. And don't look it up, you'll get a shock. But it was called that because the first time that ever bloomed, there was a little nubbin like that showing, and 3 or 4 days later it was about 6 inches long. And it warranted the expression, quite honestly. And because I didn't really know what the blooms were going to look like, it just grew. The spike grew at a colossal rate. And then it was a mass of blooms. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that one again. They don't last long, but at the moment I can see at least 2 or 3 of those nubbins starting to push out. And what else? There was something else. Oh, I'll find it in a minute. That's nice to see too, the Avanagara apple blossom. Latest growth is, now this does funny things. Occasionally it pushes out a sheath and then the buds, and sometimes the buds come straight out of the leaves. It's a funny one, this one. I think, quite honestly, the way this grows and the fact that it's not as light tolerant as a lot of the other Cattleya types, I think that's got its genes muddled up somewhere along the line. But the blooms are stunning, gorgeous fragrance, looking forward to that one. Now this one has bloomed on every single new growth it's put up without fail, but it's only ever put up one new growth at a time. So to get some progress on this plant, I really would like more new growths. Now this new growth came out quite high, on the previous one. Rather than right from the base, it came out slightly to the side. It has got an eye that side of that growth, and it has got one that side. I would be over the moon if both of them pushed out instead of just one. And then we'd have 2 leads and the possibility of 2 lots of blooms. I think I've only ever had 2 or 3 blooms on mine. But then in the past, it's never had a root system like that before. I mean, that's the best root system it's ever produced. And that's literally since it went in the holy clay pot. So hopefully it's got more oomph in it this year to possibly push out 2 leads. It's a wait and see though, but there'll be buds down the line coming soon. This Cattleya should be bursting at the seams any day now, I think. I mean, it's these are quite large blooms, so there may be a bit more swelling to do, but I mean the blooms of the buds are showing their colour now, so I mean they're not going to be long. So in the next few days those 2 will be open. It's worth remembering a little tip. As your Cattleyas form their buds, it's quite important to decide at the point that, you know, either the young spike or the buds that you can see, it's quite important to decide which way you want the buds to face, and then make sure that the plant faces the light. The last time this one bloomed, I had an upside down bud because I kept moving it around. And if you look at the shape of the buds this time, yeah, they've got 2 sepals there, 1 on the top. 2 sepals there and 1 on the top. So they're both going to open the right way up this time. And that's going to make them look so much better. In addition to that this time, the buds have actually spread apart quite well. They were quite close together last time, so they were touching and overlapping, and one was upside down. So it didn't give the best of shows. But hopefully this time I've got the separation and both blooms should be up the right way. So obviously every time I've been watering this one, I've made sure it goes back in exactly the same place as far as the light is concerned, to make sure that it just heads in one direction and the buds stay upright. You keep moving your plants around and changing where the light comes from. They'll twist, they'll turn, and you can end up with some facing away from you and some upside down or sideways on. They just don't look so good. So try and remember to, literally, you've got to do it quite early on, and just develop your spikes and your buds in a single direction, and then you'll get all the blooms up the same way, and they do look so much better when they open like that. So that one's coming soon. Where's its sister? There's 2 of those. Oh, there's the other one. I've already watered that one. So the buds are coming on that one too. And this is the sort of stage I'm on about. At this point, I need to decide which way do I want those blooms to face. And quite honestly, I want them to face away from the leaves. So this needs to be the direction of the light. Yeah? And then both of those buds will turn, face the light, and expand, and hopefully open the right way up. Because they do look better. Those 2 plants are the same. I split up a larger plant and stuck them in the holy clay pots, and away they went. Again, I'd like to see more than 1 lead next time round, but I'm surprised this is back in bloom this quickly, quite honestly. Still, doing well. And while we're looking at new things, hang on, let me just turn this fan off for a second. This bush, Dendrobium hancockii, we've been watching that and trying to think, is that a bud or is that just another branch on one of the canes? It's difficult to tell. I haven't had the plant very long, and while we've been busy watching that, what we've missed is that, and I'm pretty sure that's a bud. So we may be seeing the bright yellow, waxy, long-lasting, fragrant flowers after all. This is the only reason I got this plant. That list would be perfect for every single orchid. Long-lasting, fragrant, and a colour you like. You know, what more can you ask for from an orchid? What you could ask for is a much smaller bush. But I'm determined to keep this bush no higher than this. You can see it's starting to push up here, but this cane is arched, yeah. So the branches will naturally arch. If you look at the way the other branches have gone, they're pendulous. So that, in theory, is as high as I'm going to allow it to get. And although I still haven't had the nerve to do it yet, because I haven't got a cane at exactly the right point that I want. And what I want to do is on one of these new growths that are coming from the base, literally right from the base of the plant, shooting upwards, is I'm going to take the top out of one of them, only one, because I want to see what will happen. Because if it then branches lower down, I can get a better bush by getting branches lower on the plant and fill the plant out. Because if I come down here without breaking my neck, you know, the base of the plant looks like a load of dead sticks. There's no signs of new growth for this year on that. The canes that are last year's growth, well, I presume they're last year's, are things like this. They're all coming from the base and pushing up, and they haven't reached the stage where they start branching yet. So it's a little experiment that I plan on doing, but it looks like we might get a bud or two on this one. As I say, I don't expect miracles from it. It hasn't acclimatized to my environment yet. And although I sunk it in pots full of gravel to hold the flipping thing upright, it does need to be repotted. And I think it would suit a holy clay pot. Yeah, and hopefully that will be heavy enough to stabilize the plant. So far, I still haven't found the perfect place for it, because at the moment that's the only place I've got where it can live. It's so tall, if I put it on a high shelf, it's going to be up right in the roof and take up an awful lot of space for one plant. But I want this plant, I want to look after it. So somehow or other I need to find a place for it, and I think the place for it will end up being here. The trouble is, the rest of those shelves have got to come back out here soon, and that takes that set of shelves back up to here and gives me a new top shelf, a second shelf and a third shelf. Yeah, all the plants indoors have got to come out here at some point. So I need that extra shelf space. But somehow or other I've got to try and accommodate this plant. I'd like it up higher to give it more light, but it's a very large plant. If it went in a holy clay pot bowl, that's going to knock 6 inches off of its height straight away, because obviously the pot's in a tall pot full of gravel at the moment, or grit anyway. So I've got work to do on this. I'm certainly not going to repot it yet. But I am starting to give it more water now. I want to see some new growths at the base. You know, that's my trigger for this plant, I hope, to actually repot it and get it in something where it will stand up on its own. And we'll see how we go with that one. Now this one just caused a mini panic, a paniquette, mini panic. I looked at those buds as I got the plant down and I thought, oh hell, they're blasting. I mean, that's a new acquisition. I wasn't expecting it to bloom. Obviously any blooms are a bonus. And then I had a look at the tag. Panic over. It's a yellow cattleya. So the buds would be yellow then, wouldn't they? So I don't think they're blasting at all. I think that's just their natural colour. But this one's doing something very strange. It's blooming, I would say, poorly from the latest 2 growths, but you know, it's only just getting a root system going underneath it. So, but 2 buds per spike is probably not that good, because this is a young min. A young min tends to be quite floriferous on each spike. You know, a lot of smaller blooms, but a lot of them. So that's not a good blooming. But it's also doing something strange around here, because the latest growth, which hasn't even matured yet, has also got buds. Silly thing. Anyway, it's establishing its root system, so obviously the next set of growths I should see the proper blooming on it, because that is not a good blooming for that type of cattleya. The young min set, of which there are many, tend to be, well, along those lines. Guess what that one is? That's a young min orange. So that's more like what a young min ought to do. They're not huge blooms, we tend to get quite a few of them, and you also get the regularity. Virtually every new growth that matures will do that once it's got a good root system under it. So yeah, at least I'll see the colour. You know, when you get a new plant, you may have seen a picture, but it's never quite the same as seeing the real thing. So coming soon. I don't think they're going to be that large either. And as a consequence, the smaller bloomed cattleyas, like this, should have quite a lot of blooms. So that's a couple of struggling spikes there, but at least it made the effort, I suppose. Yeah, this was the other thing I wanted to show. My Dendrobium Victoria Reginei is a kiki machine. And in fact, the plant itself is nothing more than kikis that have grown on. That's all it was a pot full of kikis, and it's doing it again. I've got a lot of nubbins on this plant, but as you can see, it does like to produce kikis, but we have a wahoo moment. That's not a kiki, that's buds. At flipping last. And that's exactly where I'd expect buds to come from, off an old cane that's lost its leaves. Which probably means all the nubbins coming out on these leaf canes are going to be more kikis. One or two of them might be buds, I don't know. But that'll be a first time bloom on this thing. I mean, there's two old canes there, and well, it looks like we're going to get some buds. It looks like there might be three. We shall wait and see. But that'll be a first timer, and boy am I looking forward to the colours. They are stunning. So, first timer. Always pleasing when they go for the first time. And another pot full of kikis by the looks of it later on in the year. See, that's too early yet. Although that's starting to grow roots, it hasn't got proper leaves yet. The time to take the kikis off really is when they look like a plant. In other words, they've got a little root system with growing tips and they've opened their leaves, so they become self-supporting. You take them off the plant too soon, all they'll do is stall, and they'll sit there and do nothing for a long time. I've seen it too many times. Let them grow, let them stay with the mother plant and become an established little plantlet in their own right. And then they'll take off an awful lot quicker. But we've got a lot of nubbins on this thing. It's going to be either a lot of kikis or some may become blooms. But that's more likely where it was supposed to bloom, and it seems to be doing as expected. And if that's the only blooms I get, I'll still be pleased. It's one of those days today where everything needs to be on. The shade netting's up, the temporary shade netting, that's going to have to become permanent soon. The reason it's not up to the top is mainly for the resting dendrobium, so that they carry on getting the brightest light possible. Most of those are coming out of their rest period now, and once they get into the growing season they don't need that level of light. So that shade netting will soon go up to the top and become permanent again. That's where the strongest sun comes in, and you can see it's climbing up in the sky now. And I hope that's dazzling you as much as it is me, because I can't see. But yes, the sun's starting to come in through the roof now, so soon there's a roll of shade netting up on the roof that stays up there permanently, and I just literally unroll it across the roof and fix a couple of wires there to stop the wind taking it over next door's garden. Now that'll be coming in soon. We're getting there. We're well over the 10 hours now. We'll be up to 11 soon. And if you look at those plants up there, they're in full sun through glass. That's why I've got as much airflow as I can possibly get. That one's on to gale force, full on. That one's on number 2, because number 3 starts knocking plants over. It's a powerful fan, that one. But quite honestly, although that's a bigger fan, it gives a more even airflow than this smaller one. The smaller one turns faster and I don't know, seems to produce more of a draft. But you know, the old heat's getting up 26, 27 degrees already. The fogger's like permanently on, trying to cope with the humidity, which means I need to shut the door and keep it in there. Even the extractor fans come on. Yeah, so the heat's starting to build up. And very soon, not yet, but not too distant future, we'll have to unwrap this. That's the inlet fan, and that sucks in cool air from outside. The trouble is, everything has to move out the way, because certainly in the earlier parts of the year, that's sucking in quite cold air, because although the sun's out, outside it's still only about 8-10 degrees, not 25 degrees like it is in here. And you put a large fan like that on directly onto plants, that's a draft. Yeah, so at the time I unwrap that and start that one coming on as well, everything in front of it has to move and has to come out of the way. And then as the weather builds up, things start coming back into this area, on the floor and on this shelf, far enough away from that fan that they don't get bowled over. But things like my odontoglossums, some of my cotyledons, the cooler growers go in the direct line of fire, so they always get that cool airflow every time those fans come on. And those fans only come on when the heat is there. Yeah, so when it's not there, there's other fans doing the job. But you know, when the heat builds up, the more airflow you can get, the cooler you can keep your leaves. So oh, I just noticed that too, that Miltoniopsis is going to be open soon. Looks like it's only, I'm not sure that other bud's going to develop. It's a poor quality spike, but you know, that's Donald. No, I didn't call it Donald. Anyway, just a few little things going on for today, and yeah, I'll see you again next time. Thanks for dropping by.